Today's big issue, should the major comic companies limit the amount of time one creator has with major comic book characters? Okay, so we are a few weeks late to this party.
We are.
But it was quite a major news story when it came out. We didn't cover it, so we thought we'd cover it now. Basically, Geoff Johns, the now I suppose legendary writer of Green Lantern, is finally coming off the book after almost a decade run on it. And in fact, not only is he coming off the book, but every Green Lantern book is being overhauled. New writers are coming in.
Which isn't so important because all the other writers are writers that have come in New 52, I believe.
To my knowledge, yeah, they've not been continuous.
So they've only been writing a year, and I don't think they've been selling too well, so
yeah,
that makes sense.
So it makes sense to do that, but to take Geoff Johns off the book, a really established name. For him to come off the book, a really established name, to leave it in the hands of fairly unknowns. I mean, I saw some of the promo, well, it looks brilliant. I'll definitely be picking up the first issue, like I did with Arrow. But for me, it led to a bit of a bigger discussion, and I kind of wanted to know, a decade-long run on a book, it's had some serious ups, you had the Rebirth, the Sinestro Corp Wars that we have here, Blackest Night, Brightest Day, some of these big stories. And then in between those, there were some lulls in there. I know the first ever comic book I picked up with my own money was the Brightest Day series, so it was quite influential for me.
And by that you mean pre that, there was a gap, and
I'd read some Spider-Man, things like that.
You had comics bought for you as a kid, and that your brothers would buy.
Yeah, exactly. But this was the first comic I went out and bought.
When you were getting back into comics, you were buying
Brightest Day. Yes, and I enjoyed it quite a lot. So, how do you feel about a writer working on a book for almost a decade?
Well, for me, it just comes down to, I don't mind at all. Like, I just feel like as long as a book is good, as long as people are liking what's happening, keep the writer on the book. Like, I think if Scott Snyder, whose Batman we're all loving, I don't think any of us would be bothered if he was on issue 50, issue 100, if it was still good, if it was still a really good quality. I don't think, I think and in fact with Green Lantern, I more than that, I think what has been good about it is that he's sort of created everything from the ground up. He has taken a character that was flailing and not doing so well, and made him a kind of mainstream character. Geoff Johns is largely responsible for the fact that there was a Green Lantern movie, and largely responsible for him being such a prominent member in the DC universe. But even if he wasn't, if his stories were good, and they have been so consistent, like you said, Green Lantern Rebirth, Sinestro Corps War, Blackest Night, Brightest Day, all really highly reviewed and well-respected runs. So,
a big chunk of my comic book box is Brightest Day comics from Green Lantern Corps, which he still has input in, as well as a few New 52 books. But all my Green Lantern books are all Geoff Johns. And I wonder, is that maybe bad for the character? Because for the last 10 years, we've had no different interpretation of the character of Hal Jordan. It's been the same character for 10 years. Whereas, you've got someone like Cyclops who, over the last 10 years, my God, how many different evolutions has he been through? He's been with Grant Morrison and Jason Aaron and Rick Remender and absolutely all sorts. And, does it take away some of the diversity from a character that you might get and leave a character stale, maybe?
Well, yeah, you say 10 years, but at the same time, that's a character that's been around a whole lot, sort of more than that. And more than that, like, we get, if someone really wants to write a Green Lantern book, then they can write him in Justice League, they could write a mini-series, there are options for other Green Lantern stories to be told, and for stories to be told out of continuity and that kind of thing. But yeah, I think, I don't see it as a problem. I don't see it being a character would suffer through lack of interpretation just because of a long run. Like, if I don't. There's no complaint for me if Geoff Johns is writing this character really well. I mean, he has defined Hal Jordan in a really cool and interesting way, and I think that actually is what these characters are missing. I think that's what, sort of we need that, right? Surely we need someone to put a stamp. Let's see this is what these characters are, rather than his interpretation. Because really, if these are good characters, there shouldn't be that much room for interpretation of their personality. These should be characters that have specific personalities, and it should just be how good are these writers at expressing those traits. And I think Geoff Johns has proven time and time again that he has been.
And are you more likely to pick up Green Lantern issue? I think issue 20 is his coming off book. Same with all Green Lantern books. Are you more likely to pick up some books now that you've got a creative team?
I would have been if it was creators that I knew and that I could get excited about. Mm-hmm. The creators that they've put on the book, I feel like are just, I mean, they're not A-list creators, or they might be, and I don't know them. I've never read anything by them.
Do you not think, though, clearly there's something in these new creators, because you've got Geoff Johns. I mean, he's the head honcho just under Jim Lee at DC, and he's created such a fantastic run on Green Lantern. Then maybe it is bad of me.
It is bad of me to say, oh, I don't know these people. How will you ever get new creators? How will you ever learn to love new creators if you don't give their books a chance? Right? There is that.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'm buying a shitload of books, and if you don't entice me with your marketing, I mean, depending on how I'm doing at the time, maybe I'll pick up the first issue, right? Maybe I definitely won't be picking up Green Lantern Corps and all that kind of stuff.
Well, you see, I'm very tempted by I'm going to butcher the name, but Lafaris, I think it is. He's the Orange Lantern, because I know the artist Keith Griffin's working on that book, and I love Keith Griffin from back in his Lobo days, and I've really enjoyed some of his newer work. Out of the list of creators, he's the only one I know, and I think I'm more inclined to give it a chance now. Well,
that's what I'm saying, because that's a creator that you know and you like.
But I'm more inclined to give most of the books a chance, because I like this strategy. Instead of doing something that it kind of annoys me a lot, which is the new creator, number one it. Like, just get rid of all the numbers that have come before, smack bang it on a number one. I like the idea of it being issue 20, because that to me is a comic book reader's strategy. Instead of changing the number like you get with the Marvel Now series we've got, or the new 52 that we had, you're shifting over creative teams, shifting over, I imagine, quite a lot of what the character is going to be interpreted as. Maybe. I mean, if they're giving it to small guys, they may not tread on water too much, but I like that as a strategy, to just keep it fresh, keep it going on that same vein.
Yeah, I mean, I think as well, I feel like we picked up the new 52 Green Lantern and did not like it.
No, I read the first 3 or 4 issues, I want to say.
3, 4, 5,
and it just didn't grip me.
Like I say, I haven't read a good Geoff Johns story in years. And I think actually the only reason that he was able to continue, here's a question, should he have been writing this book start of the new 52, or should he have handed it over at that marker? You can't argue with his CV, right? I mean,
it's very true.
Green Lantern Rebirth literally reinvented a character, made him relevant again, made him cool again. Sinestro Corps War was his swan song. It's absolute crowning glory. Blackest Night he orchestrated that whole event. It was a great kind of orchestration of that, right? And Brightest Day sort of an epilogue to that.
Yeah.
So you can't argue with his resume going into it.
And I mean, he is responsible for the new 52, because to my knowledge, I really hope Flashpoint was his creation, and therefore it was all
so I mean, he's
down to him.
He's as you say, he's this big guy. I mean, I personally think he's really out of touch. I don't think he's written a good story in a long time. I think his Justice League run leaves a lot to be desired. And I think it's about time he stopped maybe writing comic books. Well, no. Stop. Maybe just give someone else a chance. I think it's good giving these younger creators a chance.
final thing I'll touch on is, it is good to give the young creators a chance. And you do say, he's on this book so much because he's such a big name. You've got a guy like Peter Tomasi, who worked very closely with Geoff Johns on The Brightest Day and is currently writing Batman and Robin, which I've given up on because it's gotten so stale, that book. My question to you is, how much longer should a creator be allowed that kind of leeway of a good to bad book? Like, how much of a dip period should they be allowed to go through? Or should...
Part of the problem is that it's all sort of opinion, right?
Oh, yeah.
Batman and Robin.
We don't know what all the internals are.
The problem with Batman and Robin is it's called Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
People are picking it up. This is, and with the comic book industry as well, what you see is when you launch a book, that is the most it ever sells, and comic book just does that. You can't name a comic book that doesn't, almost.
I would say at the moment the only book not doing that is Batman. Which is
even that to some extent. If you look at Court of Owls, it's sort of dropped, and then Death in the Family, and then it sort of drops like that. And that's what you do. You big events, creative switches, reboots, that kind of thing. Unfortunately, that's just the way the comic book works. But yeah, in an ideal world, yeah. If a book's not good, put someone else on it. Batman and Robin was great to start with.
It's your number one book.
Yeah, exactly. It was so good. So we know this guy can write. So yeah, give him a couple of chances. Has he had more than his fair share? Yeah, he has. Geoff Johns, people were still liking his work. I happen not to like it, right? I happen not to like this Green Lantern story. People loved it, right? So, there's the kind of new Green Lantern that he established. People are loving that. They're really into that mythology. I'm not, so it's kind of an opinion-based thing. But in an ideal world, sure, leave a creator on a book as long as it is a good book and as long as it's selling.
Fair enough. Well, we'd love to hear what your opinions are on Geoff Johns and his run on Green Lantern, whether you enjoyed it or not, or whether you think it went on a bit too long. We'd really love to hear, so comment down below.
Aye. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter. It is @comicbookshow1.
Yes, it is. And also, if you join us on Friday, we are going to be doing our best of the month of February.
We are indeed. Don't forget, Dale's Just Giving page, justgiving/Quentin Quiet, my website, casualrobot.com, and we hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we will see you next time.